Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well. So today we're going to be having a look at the new Parfum de Marly fragrance, Oriana. I do have my wee sample here of the fragrance. So when this perfume was first released, I wasn't sure if it would be too sweet. It has quite a few like fruity notes, you know, and I'm not necessarily a huge fruity fragrance lover myself, so I really wasn't sure, you know, how I was going to feel about this perfume. In the top we have mandarin orange, grapefruit and bergamot, so quite a bright fruity opening there, quite citrusy as well. And then in the heart notes we have orange blossom, raspberry and blackcurrant. And then the base notes we have marshmallow, whipped cream, musk and ambrette. So, you know, largely fruity notes there. And I worried that there wouldn't be enough substance to the scent. It sounded like it would be very kind of light and airy in a way. I wasn't sure if it would be heavy enough, floral enough. I thought it would be too fruity or maybe like too sweet. So there was no way I was gonna blind buy this. I mean, I think at one point I was almost tempted to blind buy it, but then my sense kind of kicked in and I decided like not to do that because it's not cheap and I really wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about it. So I did end up getting a sample, and that is because I purchased this 10ml spray of Delina. I purchased this for my sister. As some of you may know, Delina from Parfum de Marly, it's not for me. It's a very nice fragrance. I got it from my sister and it really suits her. It smells amazing on her and things like that, but it's not a perfume for me personally. So I got this for my sister and subsequently I received this with my order. So I have had a full day wear of this fragrance. I'm just going to show you how much I have left. I don't know if you can see that. I have a little bit left of this sample. I've worn most of it. I wore it out for a full day and I sprayed it on a tester card, and you know, I've tested it a few times at this point, but I'm just going to spray it again on my card here to sort of refresh my memory. Upon the first spray onto paper, I immediately got that very inviting, slightly powdery, marshmallowy kind of fragrance from it. Kind of slightly powdery, almost like, you know, the outside of an actual marshmallow, how it's like slightly powdery. It almost feels a bit like that. I actually kind of thought, wow, you know, when I first smelled this on the card, I thought this smells incredible. It's a really beautiful fragrance, instantly very likable, very feminine, girly, flirty to me, and all of those good things. However, when I sprayed it onto my skin, it actually smelled very different to me, so I am just going to go ahead and spray some onto my skin just now. On my skin, initially I get a lot of that grapefruit, and I wouldn't necessarily say that that's a note that I get on well with. I'm not a huge fan of grapefruit. I believe, if I'm remembering correct, I think there might have been grapefruit in Angel Muse, one of the Angel Muse fragrances, and it was too harsh for me. And I definitely get that grapefruit when I spray it onto my skin, along with the other citrusy notes. So they really come into play when I spray it on my skin. For some reason, when I sprayed it on the card, it was the marshmallow that I got. And that was my first ever impression of this fragrance. So I got really excited about that because it smelled really nice on the card. You know, this slightly powdery marshmallow whipped cream kind of scent. But as soon as I spray it onto my skin, so I get a lot of those citruses. I definitely get the mandarin orange with the orange blossom, very citrusy in an orangey way, with the grapefruit and bergamot as well, giving it a brightness almost like in a sharp kind of way, because they're just, you know, they're really bright notes, you know. And with that as well, you do kind of get the marshmallow in here. You do get those nice base notes, but I would say they're quite faint. You know, I would say for the first few hours, it's definitely these citrusy, fruity notes that are kind of dominating in the scent. It's very sweet, like overall, regardless. And something that this almost reminded me a little bit of was like a sorbet, like an ice cream sorbet. So if you can imagine maybe a an orangey sorbet ice cream. So it's slightly tart, but still very, very sweet, you know, almost in that kind of ice cream-like way. I think a lot of people would enjoy this. I've heard various comments here and there mentioning that there's a similarity between this fragrance and Love Don't Be Shy. I can definitely see where they're coming from. Now I've tried Love Don't Be Shy and I've tried Love Don't Be Shy Extreme, and they have a definite marshmallow kind of quality to them, as does this fragrance. They're both very sweet fragrances, but they're very different, I would say. So the Love Don't Be Shy fragrances, they're much, much heavier. They're very weighty, they're very powdery to me. They're very multi-layered and kind of complex, and they have a very beautiful, they evolve on the skin. This fragrance here it's almost like a watercolor version of that. It's like a very light, bright, and like a thinner version of that almost. So to me, they're not like super similar, but there are some similarities there, but they're not like super similar. Something which occurred to me actually when I was wearing this fragrance for a full day is it reminded me more of Poison Girl. So this fragrance, Oriana, actually reminded me more of Poison Girl. The longer I wore it on my skin, it reminded me of this fragrance like more than it reminded me of Love Don't Be Shy. It's a very bright and carefree, happy kind of scent that reminds me of a fairground or like a circus or that kind of thing, like a day at the fairground basically. That's what this perfume kind of reminds me of. Overall though, you guys, I would say it's a pretty disappointing fragrance, if I'm being honest. Like on the whole, with a fragrance at that price point, I was expecting more, you know. I was expecting you know, the next incredible fragrance after the likes of Delina Exclusive, Safanad, like all of those fantastic fragrances they've released. I was expecting another one to the same sort of quality, you know, a fragrance with a similar sort of wow factor about it. And to be honest, I didn't quite get that with this fragrance. It's an interesting fragrance in some ways because, you know, at one point when I was wearing it for the whole day, I thought I couldn't smell it anymore, but then I would catch a whiff of it. So maybe it's one of those fragrances that has a kind of peekaboo effect, you know, where you stop smelling it for a while and then you can actually smell it later on in the day. I sort of noticed that about it. I actually put a poll out on my channel to ask you guys. I asked you, how important is perfume longevity to you? 1% of you, out of the 211 that voted, 1% said that they didn't mind at all about longevity. 58% of you said that it was fairly important, and 41% of you said that perfume performance is very important, to the point where you wouldn't actually purchase a fragrance if it wasn't strong enough. So I quickly put out that poll just to get a picture. I mean, I had an idea of your opinions on this anyway, just from previous comments that I'd read from you guys, but I just wanted to like double check, and it seems as though most of you care somewhat about perfume performance, projection, lasting power, and things like that. And although this fragrance has some subtleties about it that I think are kind of interesting, you know, how it's kind of a peekaboo fragrance, on the whole, I'm pretty sure that many of you would find this perfume quite disappointing, if I'm being honest. It's a very lightweight kind of scent, to the point where it feels almost like spun sugar, candy floss. It has that very light, airy, almost cloud-like texture to it, to the point where you sometimes can't quite smell it that strongly, if you know what I mean. It's a very light fragrance. It almost feels more like an eau de toilette to me, rather than an eau de parfum. And it's a tricky one, you guys. I think you could really like this one, but I wouldn't compare it to any of the previous Parfums de Marly fragrances. I just wouldn't do that, because the minute you start comparing them, it's going to be very easy to pick out the flaws of this new fragrance, you know. So if you were to appreciate this new Oriana scent just as a standalone fragrance, and you weren't thinking of the likes of Delina or Athalia or Delina Exclusive, if you just forgot all of those previous flankers and really appreciated this new one as a whole, I think you could really enjoy it because it does have some interesting nuances to it. It does kind of have that very subtle, you know, presence, but I did kind of still smell it from time to time as the day went on. So it was kind of interesting from that point of view, like I say, but on the whole, I feel like due to the very bold appearance of the bottle, many of us were expecting a bit more from this scent. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd be really interested to hear how did you think it would smell, judging by the notes in the bottle and things like that. Just let me know. But to me, you know, this very vibrant pink appearance of the bottle, you would expect something with a bit more kick to it than the likes of Delina or Delina Exclusive, which are presented in this very soft pastel kind of shade. And actually, in my opinion, it's the other way around. So these fragrances, the Delina and the Exclusive, they are incredibly strong to me, and they have a very strong presence. They're very bold, very beautiful. And Oriana is more of a faded, softer fragrance. But it's in the bolder bottle, you know, which is kind of a bit interesting to me. It doesn't quite match the fragrance in some ways. I almost feel like a perfume as light and airy as Oriana would have maybe suited a pastel sort of bottle as well, or something like that. I don't really know, you guys. Yeah, because when you know, if you're comparing it to the likes of Delina and Delina Exclusive, these fragrances to me are like a 10 out of 10 for performance, projection, lasting power. And the Oriana fragrance, I would maybe be, at this point, bearing in mind I only have a little sample, you know, there's a limit to how much I can test this fragrance. So with that all like in mind, at the moment I would give it like a 5 out of 10 for performance overall. So just to make sure I've not missed anything out, I'm gonna just read through the notes that I took when I was first trying out the fragrance. You know, these were my kind of first impressions. So I wrote that on paper, I instantly got the marshmallow enhanced by the orange blossom. It smelled incredible. It was rich, creamy and powdery in equal measure, almost creamy in a powdery way, but quite bright at the same time. Not as impressive as Love Don't Be Shy, which yes, that's true. And then on skin, I said that it was very faint, citrusy. On my skin, it didn't actually feel as though it had as much depth to it as when I smelt it on paper. So on the card, it smelt much richer to me. But then when I actually sprayed it onto my skin, it was mostly those citrusy notes that I could really detect, and it smelt overall very faint, almost like an eau de toilette. I wrote that it's a nice, sweet candy floss kind of fragrance, and yeah, it reminds me of a fairground. And it depends what you're looking for, but if you're looking for a fragrance on par with Delina and Delina Exclusive, and you want a very bold fragrance that's going to last a long time, and you want that type of a scent, then I would say don't go for this one. I would say you're probably going to be disappointed. But if you're looking for a subtle scent, you know, a very subtle, light fragrance that almost has a kind of peekaboo effect, in the sense of not being able to smell it sometimes and then kind of being able to smell it other times, and you want something reminiscent of candy floss, you know, then this might be the perfume for you. Will I be adding it to my collection? Probably not. It's the kind of thing that if I could purchase the perfume at like a discounted price, a heavily discounted price, you know, then sure, I would probably go for it because it smells very pleasant, you know, but it didn't have the wow factor for me personally. I would actually rather go for Delina, which I've already told you guys I'm not. I've told you guys that Delina isn't quite for me, but I would probably rather go for Delina, the original Delina, than Oriana. That's just kind of how I feel. The thing that kind of surprised me in a way is the time of year that they decided to release this perfume. So this fragrance, to me, it smells very much like a spring, summertime kind of scent. And the look of the bottle as well, it's this very fun, bright pink colour, you know. I do really like the idea of a marshmallow fragrance, but if it was me personally, I would have maybe done something more like a a darker, rich, almost like a toasted marshmallow kind of fragrance. That's maybe the route I would have gone down, especially for this time of year, and I maybe would have done it in a ruby red coloured bottle with a gold cap and like a garnet, like ruby coloured jewel on the top, and it would have been, you know, a dark, rich, woody fragrance with a toasted marshmallow kind of scent to it. It would have been a gourmand, but it would have been heavier, very powdery, with a very prominent toasted marshmallow accord in there. So that's kind of what I would have done differently personally, just because to me this is more of like a spring summer kind of fragrance, especially with the actual power of it. It's a very, very light fragrance, very lightweight, and I just feel like something a bit heavier would have been better for this time of year, but again, just my opinion. And that's kind of it, you guys. I have to say overall, I'm not too excited about this fragrance anymore. It's not really been, honestly, I don't know what I was expecting, but I'm not really that bothered about this fragrance, to be honest with you. I don't think a lot of you would be too impressed. I think a lot of you would feel a bit let down by the performance, especially for the price. You know, if this fragrance, even at half the price, I think, you know, a lot of us would still be disappointed at the performance, but it's a very pricey fragrance, and you would expect maybe a bit more from it. So those are my thoughts on the new Parfums de Marly Oriana fragrance. Let me know in the comments what you think of it. This is just my opinion at the end of the day. Each to their own, and I think a lot of people would really enjoy this, but it's not quite for me, and I have a feeling that a lot of you would probably be disappointed by it as well. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys all being here. Say hello to me in the comments. It's always really nice chatting with you. If you enjoyed this video, then you may also enjoy these other videos that I will leave up on the screen here. And until next time, you guys, take care. Bye.